Welcome to the Bread and Wine Livecast. We are here. We're excited. This is our third episode doing this. We had a little technical craziness happen, and that was partially my bad. So I can take the
signed up for
ownership
that free trial and it expired.
Literally, 2 weeks ago we signed up for this thing, and then it ended halfway through with the podcast. So I'm sorry for those who
that might be a donation request for all you kind donors out there.
So thank you guys so much for just being a part. I hope many of you guys have just been following recently. We've put out a new album, a free album, and it's called Every Table's an Altar. And we just keep hearing just really cool feedback from that and some of the songs. So hope that's being a blessing to you guys. Tonight we have a dear friend, special guest, Mr. Randall Worley here with us, and we are so excited to have Randall here with us. He was actually at our retreat we hosted at Serenbe in the fall, and he shared with the people who were there, but also what was so meaningful to Kelly and I was just the personal time we got to have with him. He really is like a guide for us and a lot of our friends. He's been such a gift of a person. So we're just, Kelly and I, we're praying through, like, who do we record on these podcasts? Who do we bring to these gatherings? And we're drawn to people that we look at and we go, man, one day I want to become more like you. I see the fruit of your life. I see the peace in your life. I see the presence that you carry, and like, I want more of that. So we just keep drawing those kind of people in our world. So.
And if you don't know Randall, this is going to be a beautiful introduction to him. So you can, follow him after you catch this.
So Randall, are you here? Are you connected?
I'm here. Hi, Drew and Kelly.
Thanks, Randall.
Hi.
We do need to give a shout out to our dear friend, Mr. Drew Kaiser, making all this happen. If I had like some clap sounds.
Yeah, I'll say that.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. So Randall, tonight's a pretty special night in just the calendar of the Christian faith, being Maundy Thursday, and just tonight, in the calendar is the day that we remember the final meal Jesus had with his disciples. So, Kelly and I, we've grown up, in hearing this story for years and years, but it feels like God keeps giving us and so many of our friends like new eyes to see. Like, God, you're opening up new eyes to these stories and these scriptures. So, I don't know, could you add a little emphasis on what tonight means, what it meant, what this week means? Just give us a little of your take and your experience on that.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned when we were talking earlier, this evening when Jesus had requested to have what we call the Last Supper, the Passover, the Seder, with his disciples, is a moment in time that is ineffable, to say the least. Jesus enters this upper room, and with this entourage, 12 men that had been with him for now 3.5 years, and the table is set that they are familiar with, very familiar with, because of their Jewish custom. But what is getting ready to unfold in those next few minutes is something that is not so familiar, that is somewhat foreign to them. The table is set, the matzah loaves are there on the table, and there's a lot of scholarly debate about what might have happened in that particular setting. I tend to lean toward this particular description. There are 3 loaves of matzah bread, for those that are not familiar with matzah. This is a Jewish term that refers to the bread of the poor. But when we trace it back to its origins, all the way back to the book of Exodus, and the instructions that were given concerning this bread. It was to be baked, and it was unleavened bread. The interesting thing about it, for centuries, the Jewish people had followed this particular tradition, and the bread itself, when it was baked, was both striped because of the way in which it was baked, and it was also pierced. And so for centuries, they had been partaking of something that was emblematic of Christ, that he would be beaten and he would be pierced, yet their eyes were unable to perceive it. There on the table are 3 pieces of matzah bread. It's my opinion, from all the reading I've done over the years concerning this particular custom, that they were totally shocked at a paradigm shift that took place in that moment, that Jesus reaches for the piece that is in the center and he breaks it. This must have sucked all the air out of the room. Why is he taking this particular piece? And of course, the words that we're all familiar with that follow: take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. You know, we in the Christian tradition, we understand the fulfillment of that and the significance of that, but this was a major paradigm shift for them, for Jesus to do this, because usually that piece of bread was taken, it was broken, it was wrapped in a piece of linen, and it was hidden, so that in the previous tradition, so that the children, it was hidden. The children were given this task of trying to find where it was hidden. This is emblematic of even the burial and the resurrection of Jesus. You following what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. You know, over in the corner of the room, you know, there are wine glasses on the table, of course. One of the wine glasses were reserved for Elijah the prophet. In the corner of the room, there was also a table that was reserved for Elijah, because they were waiting for the return of Elijah. If you remember the prophecy of Malachi concerning Elijah, that he would turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the children to the fathers before the great and terrible day of the Lord. And they are waiting, you know, and of course John the Baptist comes in the spirit and the power of Elijah, and they don't recognize him. And so all of this, you know, this room is filled with incredible tension. And at the same time, Judas is there at the table. And this table that we have had depicted for us, I think we talked about this when we were down there for bread and wine back in the fall at Serenbe. This table is not at all like we have pictured, that has been portrayed with religious art, where it's a normal table like we in the Western world sit at, with, you know, high back chairs and that sort of thing. No, it's a very low profile table, you know, in this part of the world, as is true even when you go now to different parts of Asia. Tables are very low to the floor, which is a depiction of humility, and Jesus is sitting there with them. Actually, he's reclining, as this gospel's described, at the table.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, reclining at the table.
Yeah, he's leaning on one arm and he's eating with the other hand, and this is why this becomes so palpable in this moment when he takes the bread. You know, one of the gospel writers says, you know, when he begins to talk about betrayal, he said, "It is the one that I dip in the sop with that will be my betrayer." This is so powerful that Jesus is even reaching to the one that he knows will reject him, even in his moment of rejection. It is so, it is so filled with imagery.
Well, I remember that even when Judas comes to him to betray him, in one of the Gospels, I think it's Matthew, he calls him, "Friend, do what you've come to do."
Yeah.
I'm messing up the exact words, but I noticed he actually said the word friend, and I couldn't believe that. And I was thinking, man, how many times do I feel like I could become that betrayer, the betrayer of of Jesus or not follow his way, and yet he still sees me as friend, still would reach out and call me friend. And I just thought that was like, wow, talk about a man who could still speak into the true spirit inside of you and call that person friend. That was like, wow, he actually embodied like loving his enemy, you know?
Yeah, because, it's impossible for us to have a Jesus without a Judas. It's impossible for us to really fully experience Jesus without a Judas in our life. Whenever Judas, I think probably, in my opinion, this may rub a lot of people the wrong way, but Judas is known as Judas of Iscariot. He is from a town that is identified as Kerioth, and he's given a name that we identify as being one who was a betrayer, like Benedict Arnold. These names are associated with very infamous reputations. But the name that is given to Judas at his birth is very similar to the word Judah, which we see in the Old Testament, which means praise. His parents obviously saw something in him, either surrounding his birth or something about his conception that was, something of promise. So even though whenever we hear the word Judas, we think about betrayal. Originally, that was not the implication or the inference of his name. There was something about him that had great promise. And so, I think we have grossly misunderstood his role. Even though Jesus said when he chose him that he knew what was in him, and he also knew that eventually that he would be possessed by this enemy force that would betray him, but he understood the tension of this and that it was important for the fulfillment of his purpose. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah. When you say force, what do you mean by that? Do you feel like that's this actual spirit thing that possessed him, or do you feel like it was a poor choice?
I think probably that, and this again may challenge a lot of people's theology. He certainly had a choice. It was not something that overpowered him. It was not something that, that he was unable to resist. Even when we leap forward to his eventual suicide, he will go out and hang himself. And the scripture graphically describes that in hanging himself, that his bowels, his entrails literally gushed out. It's quite graphic. I think probably what we fail to see, if he had just waited for the fulfillment of God's promise, the hanging of Christ would have been his own hanging. Am I making sense to you?
His own hanging in what way? And explain on that.
Well, I think what he pictures for most of us is that we are trying to die for something that Jesus has already died for.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't give up on God; they give up on themselves.
Totally.
When he came to the garden with the guards, to arrest him, and the implication was he didn't just kiss him once, but he kissed him over and over and over, because he was convinced that what he was doing was not evil in intent. He was convinced that what he was doing would eventually cause Jesus to do what he thought he should do, and that was to overthrow the Roman government. And he had the wrong idea. He had his intentions were not necessarily as evil as we have made them to be.
Yeah.
He was, which how many of us have been guilty of the same thing?
So how do you, when you read these stories, I just think of myself like when I'm 16. I'm reading it literally just, this is a story I need to memorize, I need to get in my head and believe in my heart, right? As you get a little older, I remember just hearing like the invitation to find yourself in these different characters in the scriptures.
That's it.
And I'm going, oh man, where have I been Peter? Where have I been Judas? Who is the Judas in my life that I need to call friend? Do what you've come to do. I mean, yeah, I don't know, how has that change happened to you? You know, how different you used to view the scriptures and how you view them now.
Yeah, in my religious tradition, I, like so many, I think that might be listening, I didn't realize just how biased my thought was, and that I read the scripture to prove what I already believed. I was almost dyslexic, and I was reading into it rather than allowing it to read me. And like you just said so beautifully there, Ben, is that I have, over the years, I've learned how to enter into, the psyche of every character in the scripture, and to realize that this is not about me trying to find contrast between who I think I am in my own self-righteousness, but it's about me entering into the psyche of these various characters and realizing how much of this might be latent in me still.
Wow. Which changes, I mean, it changes so much of the story for me. I just, instead of just going to like, oh, memorize what Jesus did, I'm like, wow, like these stories come, I don't know, they just begin to start coming alive in the present now, of our real lives. Wow. Well, one thing that I've been inspired by you, Randall, over the years, even on what we've just talked about, is that you've continued just to, I don't know, just progress and not fear other perspectives and keeping going. I don't know, what's the framework that's encouraged you to keep going and keep pressing it and just keep evolving and not fearing that you're going to be labeled a heretic or people are going to put you on the prayer list or whatever else? What keeps you evolving?
Well, that's a great question. I think, from a very early age, I have had an insatiable hunger for understanding. And I've never been satisfied with the answers that seem to maybe in some ways cause people to feel comfortable. I may have mentioned this already in maybe one of our previous conversations. For whatever reason, God chose a long time ago to give me a greater faith to receive revelation than a fear of being deceived. And I paid a great price for that, but I wouldn't take anything for it. I agree so much with and resonate with what one man said a long time ago, that I think that Jesus came not so much to answer our questions as much as he came to question our answers. And so that's kind of the path that I've been on now for many, many years. And I can't say that, there's not been times of extreme discomfort. There has been, because I want to be accepted. I want to be affirmed by people, but I can't unhear, I can't unknow the things that are stirring inside of me and the things that I'm beginning to discover on a daily basis. And it's, I'm almost 60 years old, and I feel like, I'm still learning so much. I just, the learning curve seems so incredibly steep for me right now. But I'm not discouraged by that. I'm excited by it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's inspiring for me, just thinking, man, 30 years from now, I mean, that we would still be evolving, growing, not scared of a new perspective. I don't know, that's the one thing I've seen in you over the last, probably year or two, is how much, you've been coming into your own, evolving, reading new things and not being scared to, hey, I'll read that book. I would just even say to you, what do you feel what caused you to go to those lengths to go, yeah, I want to listen to that? What was causing that?
I think that this might sound really bad. I think I just got bored. I couldn't understand the methodology of how, what I was learning in church, and the way that it was, I wasn't seeing necessarily the action behind the story, and it wasn't making sense to me. And I'm a visual person, so it was hard for me to connect there. And I just was like, you know what, if I'm bored here, then I gotta go somewhere, because I don't want to abandon God.
Yeah.
That's not my goal. I don't want to abandon my faith. I feel the Spirit every day. I hear the Spirit every day, and I'm not giving up on my faith, but I'm bored of where I'm at now, and something's just not making sense. So that led me to different authors and different speakers and guides, and I love just the conversation that can happen. I love the deeper conversation. There's probably nothing I love more than deeper conversation.
You eat it alive.
It's like a big fat cake for me. I could just eat it all up. So yeah, I mean, I'm the kind of person. It's like, ask me anything, and I'm gonna say that it's safe to assume that I could ask you anything, and we'll just go there. But what I've found along the way is that not a lot of people want to take that journey with me. But there are people who do, and those relationships are fruitful, they're weighty and they're good, and I'm just seeking for that. It's almost like I'm addicted to that connection with other people who are on this journey, seeking and searching and trying to unfold the mystery, peel back the layers one by one. I want people that I can do that with, and that's why, Randall, we love you so much, is that you're one of those people who, if we ever have a deeper questioning on something, we feel like we can, talk to you about it. And we know that you've been on your way, and, you've gone through some harder times, but it seems, you've broken free from any binding that you've had to what people think of you and where you are and where you're going. So we really appreciate that about you, and we see you as that kind of a guide for us. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to find people in your life who are like that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so rare for us to find just people who aren't scared. It's surprising to me. I get when younger people are like, I gotta defend this, right? It's weird for me when older people are so defensive over this worldview or this thought. And I get it if you've tried to build something for 30 years and it's really threatening to read an outside perspective that could undo something you've given your life for 30 years. Yeah. So what would you say, to the Randall age 30, I know I've asked you this before, the age 30, now you said you're in your 60s, so...
No, don't push the age now. I'm I'm fighting for you, Randall.
Come on, Randall.
Thank you.
Yeah, what would you say? You know, because like we don't want to be these millennial people who just question everything. We hate everything. All we want to do is live in questions.
You're anti. You're so anti.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to just be the anti guy, but I do want to evolve. You know, I want to continue. Like, what would you say to that Randall who's 30?
Well, you know, I think we mentioned this in an earlier conversation that evolution really is a central part of being healthy. If you're not evolving, you're not healthy. Mm-hmm. If you're not changing.
I love that.
And you know, I've said this for years. God doesn't test us to see what we've learned as if He doesn't already know. God tests us and teaches us to see if we're still willing to learn. You know, transformation is often more about unlearning than learning.
Drop the mic, Randall. Boom! Boom!
Mic drop.
That's like a so good. Sorry, that's a shout out to all my charismatic friends. We in charismatic world we usually like.
Oh, you know, Randall knows.
So good, or we say Father. We say Father like really long. So that was a mic drop.
So you know, experiencing transformation is more often about unlearning than learning, which is why most religious traditions call it conversion or repentance. I think probably most organized religion has been so bent on teaching us how to think that they haven't realized that Jesus didn't come to teach us, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Teaching us what to think as much as it was Jesus came to teach us how to think.
Mm. That's good. Mm-hmm. I love it.
So what about Jesus right now? When you look at that, when you're reading through the Gospels, you look at the person He is. What's grabbing you right now? What's speaking to you right now about Jesus? Because I feel like I'm kind of having like a reawakening where I'm reading the scriptures and I'm captivated by the person He is. I just went on a silent retreat. We shared the last Livecast, and one of the guy leading it, Father Gillick, he says easy answers are easily replaced. So I feel like I'm like rereading the scriptures and just seeing Jesus in a new light. What about Jesus right now? I don't know, what's speaking to you about who He is?
I will use this language knowing that many who are listening will probably come to wrong conclusions. Just how incredibly inclusive Jesus was and is. As that is profoundly simple, but to me is simply profound. That this whole misconception that we have had about us and them, insiders and outsiders, believers and unbelievers, this is just not the message of Jesus. Jesus is so incredibly inclusive. We have drawn these tight circles and decided because of our need to defend our dogmas that there has to be those that are in and those that are out, and you just will not find that in the teachings of Jesus. He even says, He reigns upon the just and the unjust. His love is truly indiscriminate.
I love it.
Man, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. So good.
What a way to end.
Yeah, I would just encourage anyone out there, who's joined us. Looks like we've had a few who've stuck it out. Just to pray into that as you're reading the scriptures. It's interesting you bring that up, because I remember I was reading a Richard Rohr book, and he said you can sum up the teachings of Jesus into the theme of forgiveness and inclusion. So I would just begin to read the stories and see how he forgives people that you are not ready to forgive, and how he includes people that you would think should be excluded. And just pray. Just start reading the through that lens of these stories, and I think it could possibly change the way that you live today.
Yeah. And as we think of the person of Jesus this weekend, tomorrow being Good Friday, and then obviously Resurrection Sunday, just kind of let him take you on a train of unbinding you, not giving answers to your questions, but like Randall said, giving questions to your answers. I love that.
It's beautiful.
And taking on a new lens, like just for a moment, just for a moment, take off the safety goggles of how you've seen Jesus and put on a new lens of forgiveness and inclusion, nonviolence, and see the world that way. Just for the weekend, just take a moment. If you can do that, if you can let go of your safety goggles for a moment and just see the world through the way that Jesus led the world, I think that a beautiful thing could happen in your life, an awakening can happen in your life.
One thing I just want to ask Randall, could you give a little window into this new book coming out? Because I think
oh my gosh, I'm excited about this.
Yeah, it ties into what, I know your website, you would never say it, but it's randallworley.com. But hey, can you share us a little bit about this book? Because we had a convo and I was excited about it.
Yeah, well, there are two different things you're referring to. One will be coming out just in a few weeks, which is our manifesto, which is called Questioning My Answers, a manifesto for spiritual searchers. And that will be something that will be an ebook that will be available on our website to those that subscribe. But then I have another book that is coming out. The manifesto will be a short version in PDF format. In the fall, I have a book that is coming out that is published by Whitaker Publishing, and it's called Wandering and Wondering. Wandering and Wondering, the process that leads to purpose. And in it, I talk about the relationship between our purpose and the process that we experience, that we can come to the realization of our purpose in an instant, but the actualization often takes a very long process. Some of the chapters in the book are overnight success takes years. Long obedience in the same direction transitions what happens between here and there, those kinds of things. That will be coming out in the fall. Right now it looks like that Ted Decker is going to be writing the endorsement for it. Pretty excited about that.
Wow.
Man, Randall, man, this is exciting. This is like, I feel like you're just, the honest you is just, it's being shared.
Get ready.
I'm really excited for people to experience that, Randall.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I love it.
It's been great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to thank Randall. You're such a gift. We'll talk more. I know soon. We do want to thank just some of the people who've come out and watched tonight's livecast. Christy Naylor, Bronson, Janelle, Eduardo from Lakeland. Hey,
He says hi to Randall.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Craig, Graham Turner, Marcus, and Amanda Stewart. Hey,
Awesome.
thanks for joining us tonight.
Guys.
And Randall, man, you're a gift. I just pray that you just continue just going, keep evolving, and keep leading so many of us into the further mystery of Christ. And thanks for sharing with us on such a special night too.
Yeah, and hey.
thank you guys. Much love.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too. And guys, enjoy the weekend, have a good time, hopefully with your family, and embrace the love of Jesus, and enjoy your Easter. Happy Easter, happy Good Friday.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Thanks.